All right, guys, we're back, and I think we're all set. Thank you again. As I was saying, this is Leadership Matters, and my guest today is Miss Jen Schwanke. She has been an administrator at the elementary and middle school level. She is an author. She has established her voice as a literacy leader, and today I am going to say, welcome, Jen, to Leadership Matters. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Sharon. It's nice to be here.
Absolutely. And so I've given just a little bit about your background, but please take this opportunity to tell us who you are and everything that you stand for.
Sure. Thank you. Yes, I started my journey as an educator, as a language arts teacher, and believe passionately in the need to build and foster reading and writing. And I did that for 7 years before moving into administration. And then I served as a middle school assistant principal for about 4 or 5 years. And I learned a lot. Learned a lot as a middle school assistant principal, and then shifted into the role as an elementary principal. And I'm in my 7th year of that. So I have been in schools that are very affluent, and I have been at a Title I school. So a big wide range of experiences there.
Excellent. And so I've been reading articles and listening to podcasts that you've done, and I'm just so excited for your journey, because there's one thing that I'm an advocate for is our practicing leaders to be a voice, and not just in your school and not just in your district. I'm really big on that, which is one of the reasons why I started Leadership Matters. And so we oftentimes are silenced, and sometimes intentionally, sometimes not so intentionally, but I believe we should be a voice. And so I want you to talk a little bit about your background in literacy. And I heard you say you started out as a language arts teacher. And so now I'm sure you are pulling that same vision as a leader. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. And I think to your point, it really is true that we have to look at practitioners who are active in the field and who are living the work. It's very difficult for parents, for teachers, for students to follow behind a philosophy or a way of thinking that came from someone who's not doing the work. It's very, very hard, and understandably so. And to answer your question, my background in literacy is something that's always kind of kept me rooted, not only as a practitioner, but as someone who's thinking about what I want in the future, and for being a leader with a vision and with a mission. So I was always a reader and a writer, and it was something I wanted to do professionally. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to move to New York City and be an editor or something fantastic. And life took me a different direction. And when I finally found my footing and decided to go back to school to be a teacher, being an English teacher was the only thing I wanted. I wanted to teach high school English, and I wanted to make sure that students went off into the world with a good understanding of the classics. And a stroke of what I thought was bad luck, but turned out to be good luck, brought me to teaching language arts, specifically writing, to middle schoolers. And, at first I struggled with that. And then I began to see that younger students really do have a voice as a writer. And I began to really see the connections between reading the work of authors and trying to imitate art a little bit as writers, how that can really be empowering to adolescents. And so, my passion for reading and writing just took hold. And since then, I have thought a lot about how literacy instruction helps create young adults that go out into the world and can hopefully do good things.
Excellent. I love it. And so how large of a school are you the principal of right now?
Right now we have 700 students. I think we enrolled our 700th today. So we are a pretty large elementary school. I've only worked in this district as an administrator, and my previous building had about 600. So that's the standard for elementaries in our district. And then the middle school where I was about 900 or 1,000 students.
So you have one assistant principal?
Right now, as an elementary principal, I have one assistant, correct?
Okay, so talk to me. That is my wheelhouse. I love working with assistant principals. My dissertation work was actually on principal preparation and leadership development. And I have the privilege of actually coaching novice administrators. So talk to me a little bit about your intentional preparation that you provide to your assistant principal.
That's a really good question. And it's such a tricky navigation of personalities and leadership styles when you're working with an assistant, because ideally the goal is that you kind of finish each other's sentences, that you're, as we say, in stride, you're walking lockstep together. And when I started as an administrator, I had a wonderful mentor principal who taught me not only how to be an administrator, but how to work with an assistant too, because I wanted to someday treat an assistant like she treated me, with respect, with kindness, with empathy. She took time to explain things to me, and I learned so much from her. So that's what I tried to do with my assistant. When we first started working together, we sat down and we talked about what we're both good at, what we struggle with, and figured out if we can fill one another's weak areas. And then we just communicate often. We sit down frequently and say, okay, what's going on? What are the hot topics? What are some things you need to take care of? What are some things I can take care of? And we really just try to take care of each other.
And how long has your current assistant principal been with you?
This is starting our third year together. When I was transferred to the current building I am now, the assistant position opened as well, and so he started new school the same year I did. It was a very
that's real.
Right. My previous elementary, the assistant was there when I got there, and she was just amazing. I mean, she was such a generous spirit of, she had been in the building 15 years. So she knew where the boiler room was. She knew where how the secretaries worked. Yeah, she knew everything and shared it with me. So she was wonderful.
Okay, awesome. And so I was listening to one of your podcasts, the 3 Smart Tips for New Principals. I don't know if you can see that, with Rob Pennington. So talk to me about that, because your book is on new principals and you give tips. That is a special time in a special place.
Yes.
Principal, now what? And it's so funny because I've actually been in that position 3 or 4 times. I've been new to the principalship as a first year principal, but I went from elementary to middle as a principal. So that's new. I actually changed states. I went from Maryland to North Carolina.
Right.
So that was new. And then I came back to Maryland and came to a charter school, which was totally new. So I'm telling you, I don't care how many times or how many years you've been a principal. If you're in a different setting, it's new. So talk to me about the tips, and then a little bit about your book. Not all, because we want them to buy the book, and you're actually going to be on my author's podcast, so we're going to talk really about that. But just tell us a little bit. Give us some little nuggets for all of our new administrators.
Well, the book was written not to be read cover to cover, because I knew new administrators don't have time for that. When I started as an administrator, I don't think I read a book for 5 years. You just don't have time. So the chapters were written kind of by problem, and they were broken down so that somebody could just say, oh my gosh, how do I deal with an angry parent? I'm going to turn to chapter 13. And the chapters were written to be short, concise tips, and one of the things that I hope I really drove home in the book was to take your time. To take your time. When you start as a principal, like to your point, whether it's new building, new state, new role, when you start, there is so much coming at you. Everybody wants your ear, and everybody needs to tell you the biggest problems and what you need to solve right away. And the best thing to do is just push the pause button, listen, and allow yourself the gift of time to make up your own mind about what needs to be your priorities.
I think that is so important, because right now, with so much going on, new administrators are really overwhelmed. It's a lot, and probably more so than when we were new. It's just a lot of things that are taking place. Talk to me a little bit about establishing a culture for learning. When you're a new principal, you've walked into a culture already, and most of the time there needs to be a shift. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I always try to model and articulate the kids first stuff, because if we put kids first, then we're putting learning first. We're putting the learner first, so the learning is first. And I don't believe in insulting teachers by telling them too much about their curriculum or how I feel it should be taught. I watch what they're doing. I ask them questions about what they're doing. And if I think there needs to be kind of a shift, more of focus on a culture of learning, then I try to do that with gentle prodding, gentle questions, just some ideas, so that the teacher owns the learning and the teacher owns how the best practices for instruction. And I think when I put everything else on a back burner and put the learning first in my conversation, in my leading, in my staff meeting agendas, in my leadership team agendas, if the learning is first, then that will filter down to the teachers and then ultimately to the kids.
Absolutely. And so with 700 students, I can imagine that with that size, that number, that your staff is also fairly large because you need that, that ratio. So talk to me a little bit about how you build your teacher capacity for leadership.
A fantastic question. The building I'm in, not only do we have a lot of students, but we have a lot of high need students, a lot of poverty, a lot of trauma, a lot of stuff going on at home. And I am blessed to have a lot of teacher support. So we have a staff of about 80. And with that staff, we have several different, and I will try to summarize very quickly, but we meet as a staff. We also meet monthly, once, the next week, we meet as a student learning team. And that's where we talk about numeracy, we talk about literacy, we talk about any student that is struggling. We talk about content areas, science and social studies. So we answer any curriculum questions and we share ideas. The third week, then, we meet again, and that is more of a professional development meeting. And that meeting is where we present in an ed camp style. We present some topics that the teachers have indicated they need to know more about. And it could be as wide-ranging as autism, behavior problems, ELL, helping students with poverty. So those meetings are meant to answer questions that teachers have right now about how to help our kids right now today. And then the fourth week of the month, we have a teacher leadership team, and those teachers can bring any questions, problems, or concerns they want to the meeting, and I answer them, and they are my microphone. That's what I tell them all the time. You're my microphone. So you ask me a question, I answer, we as a team decide what our answer is going to be, and then you are the microphone to share it with the rest of the staff.
I love that. And when you do that, when you give them that voice, because I'm really big about establishing voices, because again, as educators, we tend not to want to be heard outside of our little bubble. And so in doing that, you are in an essence, raising leaders, which is to me what it's all about, because the principal pipeline starts way before the assistant principalship, right? And not that great teachers need to become administrators, but how do you tap those teacher leaders that you see with administrative potential? How do you mold them and start preparing them for leadership roles?
That's a good question. I teach a graduate class in educational leadership for teachers who want to be administrators. And I think, first of all, leadership is inherent. I think some people have it. I just do. And I think a lot of other people can learn it, but if it's forced or it's uncomfortable, it's just asking for a life of misery, because being a leader is not easy. So in terms of tapping leaders, the first thing I look for, to be quite frank, I feel like you look for someone who doesn't think they know everything. Because I think school leaders who come in thinking, I got this, I know everything, they will come off as arrogant. They will come off as the door's closed, don't even try to be a teammate. It will not go well. So when I see a teacher who's willing to learn and willing to acknowledge, hey, I'm figuring this out just like everybody else, someone who's willing to admit mistakes, but emerges with that inherent leadership, that ability to, as I say, take the microphone, be the lead singer. Someone needs to step up, I'll do it. And that's I always make this analogy. Taylor Swift does not stand in the back as a backup. She says, give me that microphone, I'm going to make the best music. And that's what I look for in someone who's going to be a good leader.
I love that. I love it. So, okay, with that being said, then, how do you, with those same teacher leaders, because I just think it's so important, when you're molding them, how do you, in fact, get them involved with the community, because we know as leaders, really involving all of our stakeholders, the business partners, the community, the parents, right. How do you as a leader filter that out through your staff?
Well, everybody loves compliments, right? So that's where I start. I say, you know what you're really good at? You're really good at standing up in front of a group of your peers and talking about what you know. Will you do that some more for me? Or, your organization is so admirable. Can you take over this event we have coming? And so, to give them tasks and to say, you are good at this. It really helps people feel good, feel confident, and feel like, you know what? I do. I have something to share.
Exactly. And so do you have a very engaged parent community or business community?
It's yes, it is. It's complicated, just like any relationship is complicated. We are a district that has a very, very affluent arm to it and a very, very low socioeconomic arm to it. So where I am is the pretty sweet spot. I'm right in the middle.
Okay.
So I have, most of my parents are working parents. Many of them are single working parents, but they are also very, very pro school. They're very supportive. Rarely do I have a parent who is unreasonable or irrational. And I've had that. But, part of that too is trusting your people, the teachers, to be your microphone in the community. And so when these parents send their children to us and the children come home and say, I had a great day, that's all parents care about. They want their kid to be happy, learning, confident, all of that stuff. And so that's a long answer to a complicated question, but it's all about being ambassadors for our own school.
Exactly. And speaking of being ambassadors, branding is so important now, more so than ever. We have social media, we have all of these things, and I believe that we have to be authors of our own stories as far as schools and education goes, because we don't need anyone else telling our story. So how important is branding for your school and your school community?
I think that there's two answers to that, and I think they're both correct. On the one hand, I do think we're here for customer service, and I think we need to brand what we're doing and sell it and show the world what we're doing. On the other hand, we are not a corporation. We are not here to solve everybody's needs and to make sure everybody's happy, because when you put a bunch of human beings together in any kind of setting, there's going to be huge mistakes. There's going to be meanness. There's going to be really tough situations. There's going to be problems with diversity and acceptance and classism and racism and all that stuff. And so you have to address those with how it's right. You don't just say, well, we have to just show the world that we're perfect and we've got it all figured out, because nobody does. So you have to be honest too. And, I refuse to just send out in tweets and on Facebook, just all the good stuff. I will, if I have let's say a tricky newsletter I have to send out addressing an issue, I put it out there just like I put out the good stuff. So I think it's a balance. I don't think it does anybody any favors to just brand.
Mm-hmm. I really like that. And so speaking of Twitter and Facebook and all of that good stuff, because we know that that's the way right now. That's how we are communicating, in addition to the traditional newsletters and things of such. So how do you, with that, putting those things out, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of that good stuff, not hiding, being transparent with your community, when things are tough, when it is that not so good news that you have to put out?
I think that when things get bad and you don't have control of the message. So an example would be if a community group is bashing something you've done or making you're attacking your school community. I think the best thing to do, honestly, is nothing. Because if everybody's safe and you've done the best you can and you have really good rational reasons to support how things went, then let them haters be hate, let it happen, because at the end of the day, if you're doing what's right for kids, that will come out. It really will. So you're gonna have on Facebook and Twitter and any kind of online community, you're gonna have some people that are just nasty, and the world is toxic enough without letting that take us down without owning other people's toxicity. They always say that the only way to win with a toxic person is not to play. And so I've had people that I'm mentoring before say, I'm taking a hit on Facebook about something. What do I do? And I say nothing, absolutely nothing. Let it ride, because they're going to be mad at somebody else next week. So let it go. It's true.
That is so true. So where can educators follow you professionally on social media?
Oh, thank you for asking. I am on Twitter at Jen Schwanke. That's JenSchwanke. Facebook is generally a personal one, so they won't find much on there. Picture of my cute little kids. But I try to do Twitter. And then I also have a blog where I just kind of tell stories and some things I've thought about as the principal, and it's called theprincipaltalks.com.
Oh, I love that. I don't think I've thought that one.
Fun. I sometimes say the truth on there too. There's the last post, I think, started out with me saying I'm really mad. So, there you go.
I love it. Oh my goodness. So what would be a final message to educators? And I want you to I guess can it in a new administrator way, because I know you talk a lot about the new administrator, and then just as educators in general, right. What message would you leave with them?
Well, I think it's the same message, and it would be take your time. Take your time. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. When you start out, whether it's starting a new school as a principal or whether you're looking at the first year of a 35 or 40-year teaching career, it's okay. Slow down, learn. Don't think you have to know everything day one. Don't think you have to be a hero. The best thing you can do is remember why you're there, which is to make life a little better for kids. And your kids might be 6, your kids might be 13, your kids might be 18, but your job is to make the world a better place for them. And so it takes time. You will get better every day. You will not know everything, and you will make mistakes even on the last day you do this work. So it's all okay. I have this great sign in my office. It's right over there, and it says, I hate to ruin the ending for you, but it's all going to be okay. And I say that 10 times a day. It's all okay.
Oh, I love that. I love it. I love it. Well, Miss Principal Jen, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time, for coming all the way back to your office to be with me. I so appreciate it. This is my hard work, and just really talking and featuring dynamic educators just like you. So thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure, Dr. Sharon, and I look forward to following your work as well.
Absolutely. And guys, listeners, viewers, thank you so much for joining another episode of Leadership Matters, because indeed, leadership matters. Have a great night. Thank you.